It has often been said that nothing can really be trusted until it's been tested. It is important that when we test for the purpose of finding the problems. Certainly, it's good that things work, but the real importance is that we need to find anything that could possibly go wrong, so that we're able to fix that before we go into production. So the intention or purpose of testing is really to find or uncover any types of flaws or vulnerabilities within our systems. It also, of course, will validate the functionality, testing all of the elements of the software. We test the error routines, we test the exceptions, and we test thoroughly to make sure that we test not only for what are expected inputs, but also for what are unexpected inputs. What happens if somebody puts the wrong data into the wrong field? Too much or too little data into a field? What happens if they put in the 31st day of June, for example? The idea for us is that we want to anticipate everything that the real users could do to us. And this will allow us to ensure that our software and our systems are robust. In fact, one of the things that's often lacking is this idea to test not from just the perspective of a user that is going to use the system and what are the normal user mistakes. That's what we call use case testing. But also test from the perspective of someone who is malicious, someone who is really intending to do harm. What about in that case? How robust or how resilient is our system to be able to withstand an intentional attack? We can say the real value of this then is we know that we've built systems that will provide ongoing support for the business without the business having to worry about, well, don't make a mistake or things are going to really fail. In many cases, when we test functionality, we test to make sure the system does everything it was supposed to do. This is where we'll go back to the original requirements document. We'll go back then to the design, and we'll see what was supposed to be delivered by the system and ensure that all of those functions were actually addressed. It's important here when we look at it that part of what we're going to consider is to make sure that the developer has done everything they were supposed to have done. It is important with all of this, of course, that we test not only the function but also the security. As auditors, our primary obligation is to make sure that any systems that are going to go into production, any changes that have been made to systems, have been thoroughly tested. Can we trust them? Is the advice that management is getting on whether or not this product is really ready for implementation accurate? There are two things we look for. We look, of course, for bugs, problems in the coding, or we look for flaws, which of course can be a problem with the logic of the program itself. And there are two ways to do this. Number one is to do an integrated test, which is more top-down. Make sure that all of the pieces that make up a system work and communicate with each other correctly. We also then do bottom-up, testing each module to make sure that each piece works. It's like building an aircraft. If you're going to build an aircraft, you're going to test that each bolt and each rivet was installed correctly. That is, we could say, bottom-up. But in the end, you're also going to test to make sure that the entire integrated system, the airplane itself, works correctly as a complete unit.